God here, and welcome to the Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 17 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California, and we are super excited to give you the top 10 games worth spending some money on this week. Mr. Hoyseth, are you as torn up as I am that this is most likely going to be Big Ben Roethlisberger's last home game with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
No, I'm really not torn up at all. I mean, I think it's time for the curtain to come down on the show, you know, and clearly I don't like watching a guy regress. You know, I really liked Ben Roethlisberger as a player when he was younger. And then up till about maybe 2 years ago, I still felt like he had a lot of game left, but, you know, he was one of those guys back in his day where he was great at avoiding the rush and just kind of shedding off tacklers, and he really can't do it anymore. And the offensive line isn't very good, and so you're really seeing him struggle out there, and I think it's time for that thing to kind of go away and start a new chapter there for the Steelers.
Yeah. Glimpses of greatness is what you see out of Big Ben Roethlisberger once every 4 games at this point. So I agree. I think it's definitely time for Big Ben to hang up the cleats, as do I think the entire Jacksonville Jaguars organization, which is just awful, Brad. Needs to clean house. GM, look, I would love to see an ownership change, but that's not going to happen. This Jaguar team is just a mess.
Yeah, no question about it. There's a lot of teams, and we'll hit on a few of them probably today, that we've reached that part of the season where I think if you are, you know, somebody that's out there betting on games, this is I think starts to be kind of a fun time of year, because I think oftentimes the lines get a lot larger. Some teams have obviously, like the Jaguars, have just kind of packed it in. But then again, you have an occasional surprise, like the Jets seem to be playing okay football down the stretch. I don't think they're a threat to, you know, rip off a handful of wins here before the end of the year. But, you know, I know they cost Dave a couple weeks back when they won, and that kind of left a sour taste in your mouth. But should we get into the things here or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Between the Jets and the Vikings, if I would just pick the other way, I'd be crushing you this year. Mr. Hoyseth is leading by 1 game going into week number 17. Let's go ahead and kick it off and take it away, Brad.
Yeah, my first game is the Cardinals at the Cowboys. The over-under is 51.5. I got burned last week on a couple of these over-unders. I took the overs, and we've been telling people all week long to wait until really as late as you can in the week with COVID to bet games. And that was a couple instances where I kind of got burned. I took the over rather. And, you know, within 24, 36 hours, you know, the rosters were decimated on these teams, and both the games ended up, you know, going under. And for a while there, it looked like they wouldn't score at all. And so I think it's a little bit different this week in this game with the Cardinals and the Cowboys, because, you know, you have two teams that have scored a lot of points at one point during the season. The Cardinals were great up until about 5-6 weeks ago, and the Cowboys are, you know, scoring points in buckets. And, you know, last week they had 2 defensive touchdowns, but I think that's the key to this game, is I think both teams have pretty good defenses. I don't see defensive touchdowns being scored. I mean, you know, it's kind of an anomaly when it happens, let alone twice in one game for the Cowboys last week. So I'm going to take the under at 51.5. I kind of feel like both of these teams are pretty solid defensively. I don't think either team is great offensively right now. Even though the Cowboys ran up all those points last week, they were playing a pretty poor football team. They get the Cardinals, who desperately need to kind of get a win, because the Cardinals are starting to run themselves into some problems as it relates to the playoffs. So I say 51.5 is a little high. I'm going to go under.
Yeah, it's a crazy high number when you actually sit down and think about it. We should also mention that Brad Hoyseth is playing hurt today. He is playing hurt. Had a root canal, I believe, done yesterday. So if he picks some crazy picks, we can blame it on that. And I saw this, and I saw that you were taking the under in this game. And I thought, oh my gosh, Brad is still hurting. He's still under medication. Something is going on there in the Hoysev household for him to take the under in this. Look, this Cowboy team is playing really well right now. The Cardinals are a bit of a mess. They're just not the same without DeAndre Hopkins on the team. We saw this last year with Kyler Murray. When he got hurt, he was never really the same that he was earlier in the season. Basically a repeat of that from last year. The big difference is that the Cardinals actually have a running game this year. I still think the Cardinals are going to put up a significant amount of points. I think the Cowboys are going to win, and I'm going to go ahead. For me personally, I feel like the over is the safe bet in this game, especially with how well Dak Prescott and the Cowboys played last week on the offensive side of the ball. They are getting fine-tuned, Brad, if you will, for the upcoming playoffs.
Yeah, well, you remember what I said last week at the end of the show? I said the Dallas Cowboys could be your next favorite to win the Super Bowl. We were talking about how there's been 4 or 5 teams throughout the course of the year that everybody has said, oh, that's the team to beat. First it was the Bills, and it was the Browns, and it was the Titans, and it was, all these different teams. And the last few weeks it's been the Packers. But the Cowboys look like a team that, when you can start scoring on both sides of the ball, you're a pretty dangerous football team. That's kind of what we saw to the Buccaneers last year, if you remember. They ended up being really good defensively at the end of the year. And I still don't think that Cowboy offense is quite there yet, Dave. Playing the Washington football team or somebody like that is not the same experience as playing a Cardinals team, who I think is still pretty talented. I've never been a full believer in the Cardinals, but their backs are kind of up against the wall now, and I think the defense finally has to have a good performance. And they're a better road football team than they are a home football team this year. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to grab that under, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, speaking of teams, which at one point this season, Brad, we thought were the shoe-in to win the Super Bowl this year, the Kansas City Chiefs are heading to the vastly improved, can't believe I'm saying this, Cincinnati Bengals to do battle in Cincinnati. The Chiefs are 5-point favorites heading into this particular game. As much as I like the way Joe Burrow has been playing, I believe this Kansas City Chiefs offense has finally found its stride. No word yet if Travis Kelce is going to be back or not from the COVID list. That being said, I think Kansas City's offense is starting to really move again in the right direction with or without Kelce there. I like Kansas City a lot in this game. It's a 5-point game. I mean, if Kansas City wins, they're going to win by double digits. It's going to be a blowout. This is not going to be a close game at all, which is what all 10 of you Cincinnati Bengals fans out there are hoping for, is a close game. I've got Kansas City. There'll be more Kansas City fans in the stands than Bengals. It's like a Charger home game when the Chiefs go to there. More Kansas City fans than Bengal fans, I guarantee it.
Yeah, I don't know, Dave. I thought 5 was a lot of points on the road to give against a team that's in first place and has looked pretty darn good. Cincinnati's young. Yeah, they haven't quite been there. I think that's the obstacle they have to get over. They have to learn how to beat good teams consistently. And Kansas City does those kinds of things. They've been doing them for a handful of years now, but I'm still not quite a believer Kansas City's all the way back. If you watched the game last weekend, the announcers were telling you that they're, going to be impossible to beat from this point forward. Tony Romo kind of gets a little hyperbolic at times with those kinds of things. That's the color guy last week. But, I don't know. I mean, they do get Kelsey back, and I think that helps. But I think this is a good Cincinnati team. And I think Kansas City maybe wins the game. But I think 5 is a lot of points to go on the road against a team that's in first place and kind of finding their own stride. I mean, they looked pretty impressive last week, the Bengals, to me. So I'm gonna take the home team as a dog in late December.
Okay, so
actually, it's going to be early January.
It is going to be early January. I just want everybody to know that Brad is the first person in the history of National Football League prediction shows to use the word hyperbolic, which is an excellent word. I agree. When it comes to Tony Romo, he does get a little full of himself in some of his predictions that he makes. I just look at this game and I think Andy Reid has sort of figured out what's wrong with this offense. The defense is playing way better than they were at the start of the season. I think they're going to be able to figure out how to slow down Joe Burrow enough that I really believe that this is a double-digit win for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I looked at this as another present that Brad Hoyseth was offering me. He's given me 2 presents at the top of this week's picks.
Well, Dave needs them. He's down a game in the standings, so
true. I do need them.
Take it for what it is. All right, let's move on to my next one. I have the Miami Dolphins at the Tennessee Titans, and it's not a hot. Outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, there's not a team with a stretch of wins better than the Dolphins. They won, 7 in a row now?
Yep.
And, they're going on the road to Tennessee, and they are a 3.5-point dog in Tennessee. And I'm still not a believer that Tennessee's a good football team. They are way too inconsistent for me to really jump on that bandwagon. At times they can look really good, and at times they can fall asleep. And it's kind of same story with their quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. He's a guy that at times can look really good, and at times he can look really poor. And Miami seems to me to be, have kind of snuck up on everybody. A 7-game winning streak is, that's not a fraud when it comes to the NFL. It's hard to win 2 in a row, let alone 7. And, it kind of feels like a team who's defensively, remember how we talked about earlier in the season, they were supposed to be so good defensively and they just didn't look very good. Well, suddenly now they look pretty good. And Tennessee doesn't have a lot of threats out there. A.J. Brown's back. Julio Jones clearly isn't the same guy he used to be. There's no more Derrick Henry. And, with the weather patterns the way they are and a lot of people getting tough weather, I see a lot of low-scoring games this week. And I just thought the line was a little bit high. I don't like that extra half point for Tennessee. So I'm going to take the Dolphins on the road to go into Tennessee, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if we wake up next week and that's an 8-game winning streak.
Speaking of, hyperbolic, at the start of last season, I was talking about, how great Tua was going to be as a starting quarterback in the National Football League, and how he was the kind of player that could be a Hall of Fame quarterback someday. And, just stealing a page out of Tony Romo's playbook. And man, I was just so wrong about that. If you even look at the game last week in which the Dolphins won, it wasn't because of Tua. Tua had one decent drive in the whole game. And that was it. And it was just 18 different ways they could get Waddle involved in the offense. It just led them to score on that one good drive that the Dolphins put together. Mike Vrabel, you are absolutely right. This Titans team is the epitome of inconsistent. At least they've been inconsistent more times than the rest of the time so far this year. And I think Vrabel's got them sort of turning the corner. You brought up A.J. Brown being back. Huge difference for this team when they realized he was it's like they forgot he was on the field during the first half of last week's game. once they realized, we can just throw it up to AJ Brown, then, their fortunes changed completely. Look, it's good coaching on both sides of the fence. I agree that extra half point is a little bit difficult to swallow. I am going to go ahead and swallow it. It is Mike Vrabel. It is Tennessee at home. It is a week 7 game winning streak, if you can have one in the National Football League. Don't make me rattle off all the teams the Dolphins beat. I'm just saying it ends this week. It ends at 7 for the Dolphins, and the Titans will win, and I will go ahead and give up the 3.5 to prove it.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins are on the cusp of one of the great stories, really, of the 2021 season. They were 1-7 out of the gate, Dave.
Yeah.
And they're now, what? I don't even know what they've won 7. Well, they're at least 8-7. Are they 9-7? I can't even remember, but they've won 7 straight after just a horrific start. And, this is a team that if they win this week at Tennessee, their fortunes look pretty good to make the playoffs. And so got to give props to Brian Flores for what he's done there. It's a great story. I hope it continues. I like watching the Dolphins. I think Jalen Waddle is a really good young player. And Tua has improved. I still don't think he's exceptional, but I do believe that he's kind of playing within the system, if you will. And they've got some kind of exciting players to watch. And I'm going to watch them beat the Tennessee Titans this weekend, Dave.
I can't wait for those text messages to fly because it isn't going to happen. Love Waddle, though. Love Waddle. All right, I'm moving on to the Rams at the Baltimore Ravens. In this particular game, the Rams are a whopping 3.5 point favorites. They've got to go 3,000 miles. I don't know what it is about Sean McVay. I can't tell from week to week. And just to be totally upfront about this game, it just seems to me that what are the Ravens on their 5th string quarterback now? It's just I love John Harbaugh. I look at this game and I'm totally up in the fence. I've come to the conclusion because Brad and I put these things together a couple days ahead of time. We've got the sheet and we put it, but this is the game I'm going to flip on Brad. I am going to go ahead and I will gladly accept those 3.5 from you. I'm going to take the Ravens at home reluctantly. They need this win more than the Rams do. It is a must win for Baltimore. This will be the second week in a row I've picked against the Rams. The Rams team that I thought was going to show up against the Vikings, please be the team that shows up against the other purple team in the National Football League and the Baltimore Ravens this weekend.
Yeah, well, the Rams were the ultimate frustration for me last week, Dave, because I played Matthew Stafford as my fantasy quarterback over Josh Allen. And Matthew Stafford lived up to your hype that you've been saying all season long. He came in, he had the number 2 passer rating. I don't know what he was afterwards, but he was horrendous in that football game, playing one of the worst defensive secondaries in the league in the Vikings.
Yeah.
Somehow the Rams still came out of it despite not really being their best. And I think that's a good quality for a football team to have, is still win when you're not on the top of your game. I think it's pretty clear that the Ravens are not on the top of their game. I believe that it'll probably be Brett Hundley playing quarterback this weekend. Lamar Jackson was not on the field today for practice after being on the field yesterday in a kind of a minor way. Clearly, if it goes to the number 3 quarterback, the Rams, I think, have a huge advantage. But, Los Angeles is playing pretty good football. They got a lot to play for now. They're hoping for one slip up out of the Packers. If they can get that, then they could be playing for some home field advantage, which I think means a lot this year. We haven't even really touched on the playoff format, which I think is ridiculous, that only one team gets a bye. Yeah. I think that's just silly. But we can maybe hit on that in the closing of the show if you want. But the Rams are playing for a lot. They're pretty healthy. And going on the road in Baltimore, a team that's just not playing very good. I see no signs of the Ravens getting out of it. I'm going to take the Rams. I'm going to give up the points.
Yep. This could be one of those games I definitely regret, but I got that big game to pick up on you. This is one of the one of the areas I thought I could maybe sneak one by and reel you back in. It's just there's something about this Rams team that I trust them even less than I trust the Titans.
Yeah, I'm not a big
I know what I'm getting with the Titans, right?
Like I've said all season long, I'm not a huge McVay guy, but they just have such an enormous amount of talent, and the Ravens really don't. They're not that talented of a lineup now. They're on like their fifth running back or something, and they're on the fifth running back, their third quarterback. Marquise Brown is your top wide receiver, and he's a nice little player, but he's not really a true number one wide receiver. But the defense is what concerns me. They're not playing very good defensively.
Yeah.
All right, I'll jump into my next one here. The Broncos are at the Chargers, and the Chargers are a 6.5 point favorite. And man, that's a Heckle and Jekyll team right there. The Chargers, they have some times when they just look absolutely great, and then the last couple of weeks they've really looked poor. And they found out, I think, that Mike Williams is a pretty big part of that offense last week. Another guy I had on my fantasy football team was Keenan Allen, who I think had 28 yards receiving last week. You could tell where my team went as a result of the last two players I mentioned, Matthew Stafford and Keenan Allen. If those are two of your better players, and both of them almost put up a donut for me. It wasn't good. So that might have been part of the reason I had a root canal done yesterday, Dave. It was kind of one of those weeks where I'm not sure what was more painful, watching my fantasy team or the feeling that I had in the left side of my mouth. But this game, the Broncos, man, they looked bad last week, Dave. And, here I was bragging up their running game, and Melvin Gordon, another guy on my fantasy football team, had -4 yards rushing last week. It just kind of went on and on, Dave. But it's a new week, a new day, a new game. And it's two teams that aren't very good right now. And I looked at the line, and I just saw the Chargers as a 6.5 point favorite. And it just kind of jumped out at me that that's just way too much for the Chargers to be giving anybody right now. And you want to know why, Dave? Because the Chargers cannot stop anybody running the football.
Yeah.
I mean, they are the worst rushing defense in the league. And there is nothing more than the Broncos would like to do than run the football. And they will run the football because their coach, that's the kind of guy he is. And so I think the Chargers are going to have a hard time stopping them. And I think it's going to be a fairly close ball game. And I'm going to take the 6.5 and roll the dice on the Broncos.
Yeah. So my bet on this has absolutely nothing to do with the Charger defense at all. This to me is will the Charger offense outscore the Bronco offense? Look, this is a battle of two teams that have both lost 2 games in a row down the stretch as they come, and both are in desperate need of a win. Chargers, still have a chance at displaying or running part of their own destiny, as they're currently 8-7, and the Broncos are 7-8 heading into week number 17. I just really, like the Chargers in this game. I just think that Herbert and this offense are going to figure some things out, get back on track a little bit. And any of the Jekyll and Hyde stuff that we've seen out of them the last couple weeks, at least on the offensive side of the ball, will be gone. I like the Chargers. The 6.5 is steep. If you can get it for less, absolutely go for it. But I'll go ahead and play the Chargers in this one.
Man, how desperately do the Denver Broncos need a quarterback, Dave?
It is. They can't win with a mediocre quarterback in Denver. Some teams can get away with it. Some teams really can get away with, a mediocre sort of Kirk Cousins style quarterback. You can get away with it, but this Bronco team needs a superstar quarterback. and they're gonna have to trade for it. There's certainly nobody in the draft this year worth making a move for.
Yeah, and it's Vic Fangio. I don't know if he survives another season. I think if they were to lose the last 2 games, you could see Fangio going 7-10. They go 1-1, or heaven forbid, I think if they go 2-0, he's probably still there. But he clearly is a relic from the past when it comes to coaching, and that's the nicest way I can put it. But the game has passed him by, and it's time to move off of that and get somebody young with some young blood. And like I said last week, John Elway, for such a great quarterback that he seems to have no idea what a good quarterback looks like in 2021.
Or a good coach does too, which is also one of their big issues. My dream scenario is the following, Brad. I wish nobody gets fired. I'm not rooting for anybody to be fired, but let's assume there is a vacancy opening in Denver. Wouldn't it be fun to see Matt Nagy get a second chance as a head coach in the National Football League? Matt Nagy he was 5 or 6 games above 500 coming into this year. Just no respect does Matt Nagy get as the head coach of the Chicago Bears. I would absolutely love to see him get a second chance. And then if they could trade for Mitchell Trubisky, we could have the Broncos version of the Chicago Bears for at least another 2 years. I really want to see Matt Nagy succeed in the NFL. I think he's a smart guy. He's getting a raw deal in Chicago.
Yeah, you could bring Nick Foles with him. That would give you a lot to talk about next year.
A little Nick Foles action. All right. Next up, I believe is it my turn to pick, Brad?
Yes.
All right. Next up, one of your favorite football teams, the Falcons at the Bills. Well, that is, the Bills are one of your favorite football teams. This is a crazy spread. This game is in Buffalo. The Bills are favored by 14.5. It is just simply put, just too big of a number for me to walk away from. I'm going to look this Falcons team. None of us expected the Falcons to win 5 or 6 games this year, and they have. This Falcons team has somehow played better than we all thought they were going to play this year. I mean, if you think about it, this Atlanta Falcons team, Brad, is 7-8 at the start of the year. How much would have you given me if I said the Falcons were going to be 7-8 heading into, you would have gladly taken my money and the odds on that one, because you are anti Matt Ryan. You have a Matt Ryan poster probably in your garage with an anti symbol through it. That's how much Brad Hoysef dislikes Matt Ryan at this point. So I am going to go ahead and take the Falcons 14.5. I'll take the points.
Let me tell you something about the Atlanta Falcons, Dave. Yes, they're 7-8. Okay. But if you look a little bit between the numbers, they've scored 278 points and they've given up 400. They've been outscored by their opponents by 122 points.
Yeah.
Most teams that have those kinds of numbers are sitting there with about 3 wins right now.
Yeah. And
so it's a bad football team. It is a really bad football team. I still believe the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFC. And I think the line should be 20, frankly. I think the Bills are a great football team, and I think the Falcons have completely packed it in. And the only thing that would keep me from betting on the Bills side of this would be that I wake up on Saturday and there's a snowstorm coming in or something like that. Because to me, the Bills look like a team that's about to catch their stride. They did catch the Patriots now, and they're playing for a bigger prize. I don't even think they mess around in this one. I think they score a ton early. I think the game is over early in the third quarter. I say take the Bills and give the points. And thank you, by the way, for the gift, because I think that to me is the easiest pick of the week.
Yeah, it feels like I'm I'm wrapping up your holiday present and handing it to you a little bit on this one. I mean,
I'll give you the Jets. If you want any more losers, Dave, against great football teams, there's probably a couple more out there you can take.
I was going to say, Brad, if you want to change it from 14.5 to 20, feel free to. I would be happy to change it to that. Look, reality is, Brad uses analytics well in his argument, and there's no argument against the analytics on that. They have given up a ton of points. Buffalo's played like 1.5 decent games on the offensive side of the ball in the last month. I think Buffalo will be fine entering the playoffs. I certainly think the Bills are going to win this game. Just 14.5 is a lot. I'm going to go. You haven't convinced me enough, Brad. So I'm handing you a holiday present as we go.
Perfect. Well, maybe you'll change your mind and hand me another one here, as the Texans are at the Niners. So if you'd like to test the waters one more time and take the Houston Texans, you feel free to go ahead and swap your picks. But the Niners are 12.5-point favorites. I thought it was a little high, to be frank with you. The Niners haven't looked great the last week or two. And the Texans have probably played some of their best football, until Brandon Cooks went out. But having said that, the Niners need a win desperately. The Texans look like a team that's about ready to pack it in. They're playing for a higher draft pick at this point. 12.5 is a little rich for my blood, but I'm going to take the Niners at home and say that San Francisco shows up this week.
The Texans, they haven't really phoned it in as much as you think they've phoned it in, Brad.
Come on.
They've won 2 in a row.
You can do it.
Two in a row have the Houston Texans. They are on.
You can do it. Come on. You can do it, Dave.
They are absolutely on a roll. Look, I've given you enough holiday presents so far this year. Look, Jimmy G you and I both agreed was terrible.
Brutal.
That's the problem that they know they have with the San Francisco 49ers team is just that they have a quarterback that does a nice job 80% of the time, and it's the rest of the time that there's issues. And when he's bad, he's really, really bad.
He was really bad last week.
I mean, like, he overthrows players by 10 to 15 yards. That's like, it's one thing to, throw a ball into tight coverage or occasionally miss somebody, but like he just overthrows people. He misses wide open. This is when the bad Jimmy G is playing. The good Jimmy G hits those players in stride. The bad Jimmy G, when he shows up, it's just ugly. And there's no consistency there. This is why, no matter what, the 49ers realized last year that they had to move off of Jimmy G eventually and let it be the New York Giants issue next year or some other team's issue next year, who's going to end up, maybe the Denver Broncos will think Jimmy G is the answer. Doesn't that make sense? Perfect if he ends up in Denver. Don't worry, John Elway. We are going to find you a quarterback. This is not going to be my 1-800 Cars for Kids giveaway pick where I hand it over to you. I'm taking the Niners in this one.
Yeah, it's really bad when a quarterback throws the ball and you're thinking in your head, who was that going to?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when there's no discernible wide receiver in the area code, you just go, well, where was that? I mean, what was that? And I said that like 3 or 4 times last week with Jimmy G, and that was tough and painful to watch. I think I sent you quite a few text messages on that one. This
is like when Kyle Shanahan at halftime reaches out to somebody in their medical department and asks, is Jimmy G colorblind? does he have because he keeps throwing it to the wrong team.
Yeah, I got one more thing to say, too, because I was watching that game, and it just reminded me of something. Shanahan is one of these young guys, and we see a lot of these younger coaches, and there seems to be a rash of guys going for it on 4th down. And I'm talking like on bad parts of the field. I saw, I don't know, I can't remember if it was Shanahan last week in the first quarter went for a fourth down play from his own 39. And I think they were up in the game at the time. Now I think he ended up making it, but these guys are starting to get burned, and it's all the young guys, the guy in Cincinnati, and some of these younger coaches that have no fear. The guy in Arizona, McVay. I mean, it's like they have no fear of going for it on fourth down just about anywhere. And it seems like in recent weeks, they're starting to get burned by that philosophy. And we talked about it a little bit last week when we said there comes a time and a place where you just want to kick a field goal. But is it me, or am I just been watching too much football, Dave? I mean, but it seems to me like a lot of these coaches are going for it on fourth down in just some awkward places. You see them going for it on 4th and goal from the 4-yard line in the first quarter. Just take the points, fellas.
Yeah. Definitely take the points. I saw this documentary on this high school football coach who basically revolutionized going for it on fourth down. That he could be on his own 10-yard line. He'd go for it on fourth down. That was his whole strategy. He put together some long winning streak. And then 5 years later, it started to seep into college, and that now it's taken over the NFL. They show this. They showed John Harbaugh, the coach of the Ravens, having the quarterback run off the field and saying, should we go for it on fourth down? And of course, the quarterback is going to say we should go for it. It's absolutely. I think it needs to be done tactfully, and I think blanket statements around going for it on fourth down, which is what a lot of these young coaches are doing at this point, is just wrong. It's who your personnel is, how the other team is playing, and what is so wrong, Brad, with 3 points. I mean, look, if you're on the Viking side of the ball, we've got this kicker we don't trust, but who's still hit 25 out of 28 field goals this year. He's still been above average. Why not just put the points on the board? The Ravens right now wouldn't be in the position that they'd have at least 2 more wins if they had played the fourth down game in a different approach so far this year. So.
Yeah, I've oftentimes seen. I never read the book because you know me, Dave. I don't read books. I watch movies. I always kind of feel like if it's any good, it'll come out on video.
And so, somebody will make a movie about
right,
it.
Exactly. That's always been my philosophy. But I've heard about this guy that goes for it on fourth down all the time, and I kept hearing about it. And I thought, well, it's an interesting theory and it's an interesting philosophy. And then I saw where he was like a high school coach at some small school in North Dakota or something. And I was like, well, who cares? I mean, really? I mean, this is the NFL now. I mean, you just got to be smarter than some of the decisions these guys are making. And, it's like the Chargers a couple of weeks ago. They go for it on fourth down. They have none of their best players in the game. And they get stopped 4 times out of the 5 times they tried it. And that's the other guy I was trying to think of. The young guy for the Chargers has been going for it on fourth down, seemingly every time these days. And so they're young guys. They're going to learn their lesson the hard way, Dave. It seems to me like there's just been a rash of it in the last 4 or 5 weeks.
I was going to say, that's the difference between you and me, Brad. Occasionally I do read a book. But I will say this, I used to hear all the time, the kids would tell me, Brad, the Harry Potter books are just so much better than the movies. And I always said to him, I said, the movies are perfectly good on their own. I don't need to read the book. I'm just saying.
Here's the thing on that, Dave, is that reading a book is an investment. I mean, there's a lot of time you have to invest in reading a book. And if something's bad, I just soon get it over with in 3 hours and have some popcorn along with it, I mean, if I get into something and it's not a good book and I feel like I just saw my life flash, before my eyes.
Without giving it away, speaking of not that bad or maybe not that good, The Matrix. Anyways, moving on. I'll do my movie review another day. All right, Brad. I've got the Eagles at Washington. Eagles are 3.5-point favorites. I know you have jumped on the Dave DeBob Philadelphia Eagles bandwagon officially. If the Vikings were to somehow squeeze into the playoffs, they'd have to beat the Packers on the road, and then they'd have to deal with Chicago, and they would need Philadelphia to lose at least one more time. So theoretically, as a Viking fan, I should be rooting for Washington in this game. That aside, look, this Eagle team is heading in the right direction. They are a good 15 to 20 players away from being ready to make a Super Bowl run. But Nick Sirianni, I believe in good coaching. I mean, as much fun as I made of the Dolphins earlier, they don't win 7 games in a row without really good coaching. That coaching staff knows how to utilize or not utilize Tua to their advantage. I think they are doing very similar things with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. They're opening it up for him when they need to open it up for him. And I love the guts of this Philadelphia Eagles football team. I think Washington is getting close to phoning it in. They're also also a good coached football team, just not enough talent on either side of the ball. Too many injuries on this Washington football team. I like the Eagles. I'll give up the 3.5.
Yep. Well, I was, Dave, I just changed on the fly. I got to do it. First of all, I really like Jalen Hurts. I like watching him play. I think he's an entertaining guy to watch play. Not as entertaining as Taylor Heineke, though, right? I mean, so it's a divisional matchup. 2 teams that really don't like each other. I don't like that extra hook on the end at 3.5. If it had been 2, I had the Eagles up till 3 minutes ago in this game, and then I went to the sheet and I switched it. And I don't know if it was what you were saying or what I was thinking, but I'm going to switch it here. I think the Eagles have been on kind of a decent little run here, but I'm not sure it's real. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not real. And so I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go with the football team. I'm going to take the 3.5. Feels more like a field goal or less game to me.
All right. So a rarity, a Brad Hoyseth flip-flop that rarely happens. He was obviously egged on by what he perceived to be my Philadelphia Eagle nonsense in this particular one. Weather could play a factor. We haven't even talked about the COVID factor at all, which honestly was one of the reasons I picked against the Bills. God forbid something happens to, any of the key star players that happen to come down with COVID between now and then. There's too much uncertainty for some of these really big lines. This game just, I like Philadelphia. I like the Eagles a lot. They've got actual something to play for all intents and purposes. The season's over for Washington. The only thing remaining is, what will the team name be next year, Brad? I think that's the big question that everybody in America is waiting on.
Let's go to my final game here. It is the Raiders at the Colts. Still, the Colts have reeled off a bunch of wins. And still nobody's talking about them. But they look like one of the better teams in football over the last 5-6 weeks. They got clearly a great running game. It doesn't seem to matter if half their linemen are out or not. Jonathan Taylor still seems to break one off for about 70 yards every week. They're playing a Raider team that really is kind of, almost playing for nothing at this point. Are the Raiders in the playoff? Are they still in the playoff mixture? Are they in one of the playoff spots, Dave?
They're at the very bottom of the possibilities.
Yeah. Well, I think they're going to go a little lower this week because I think they're going to be on the out possibility because the Colts are 6.5-point favorites, and they're I think a really well coached football team. I don't think they have an enormous amount of talent, but they seem to get the best out of the talent they have. And they're one of those teams that once you get to the playoffs, if they get ahead of you, I think they're a difficult out just because of that running game. Nobody seemed to find a way to stop it, and I don't think the Raiders are going to find a way to stop it because they don't have very good run defense whatsoever. And so I see another big day for Jonathan Taylor, and I will give the 6.5 points and take the Colts.
Look, Raiders are actually 8-7. They've won 2 in a row. Carson Wentz came down with COVID. He's not vaccinated. Word was, though, that he was going to be tested on Saturday, and there was a possibility he was going to be able to play on Sunday. Have you heard anything new on that?
No, see, Dave, this really bothers me. And it seems as if the NFL is just now, they're like flipping quarters, you know?
Yeah.
The rule at the beginning of the year was that if you were unvaccinated and you came down with COVID, you had to sit out a minimum of 10 days. That was the rule. And they seem to be changing these rules once or twice a week now.
Yep.
And I can't understand why. I mean, I know why. They want to see the top players on the field. And they kind of feel like they're going to lose a lot of their viewing audience if they don't have it or what have you. Maybe the ratings have gone down. I'm not quite sure why. But, you know, I've never been a big fan of changing the rules once the season starts. You know, it'd be like the NBA saying, you know, we're going to get to the playoffs and the rim is going to be 11 feet rather than 10. You know, I just don't think you could change the rules arbitrarily that's another big word for you, Dave. You know, arbitrarily, you know, but I don't think you should be changing the rules mid-season, late season, and now it seems like they're changing it once every couple of weeks. You know, if I'm the opponents of these teams, I'm just brutally upset because seemingly you're doing some things right and you're keeping your guys clean. And, you know, that's maybe not even fair to Carson Wentz because who knows where he got it. He might have gotten it on the field or what have you, but it was his choice not to get vaccinated. And I think he should have to sit out the 10-day penalty. I really do. And, you know, there's something about being a responsible member of the team. And to me, the most responsible guy on the team should be the quarterback. Like I could totally see some of that Kirk Cousins coming down with it and be ruled out for the last 2 games of the week. And the Vikings are suddenly going from, you know, still kind of in the mix to out of it. And so to me, football is a war of attrition. And just like an injury, an illness should be treated just like an injury. And if you've got something that the league has deemed is dangerous for the other players and the coaches around them, I don't see why they feel it necessary to be changing the rules. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah. it's like the Big Ten commissioner is suddenly working for the National Football League. Look, it's a pandemic that you know, and so the rules.
Yeah, right. It's a pandemic that's killed 835,000 people.
That's right, and so the rules have to be modified and adjusted. Like I'm totally with you. Like I think I completely agree with you that I think if you have the virus, we should stick by the 10 days and the testing procedures that were put in place before. As you know, I'm a big, you know, also Minnesota Timberwolves Laker basketball fan. The T-Wolves' entire starting lineup was out. They actually had to bring in a basketball player that hadn't played in the NBA since 2017. You know, and he played great. It is the rules are in all sports, and not just in sports, but in society. And we try not to get too political on this show. Related to COVID are changing. Even the CDC can't get its act right on this stuff. Like one day they're saying the rapid at-home tests work. Another day they say they don't. It doesn't provide an accurate read. And then they come out the next week and say everybody in America should be taking a rapid at-home test 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But then they come out and say the next week that they don't actually work. So it's sort of like there's a lot of confusion for the NFL and for the NBA. And I think what these leagues are doing is they're just following societies down its path to the yellow brick road. And I think really that's where all of these guys are going. Like, I think it's just a flow. Like if there seems to be a loosening up of requirements around COVID, these leagues are sort of following suit. We saw this a couple of weeks ago. The entire NHL shut down, and suddenly it's back again. And it's, in the county I live in, Brad, 1,300 new cases of COVID yesterday. There's 200,000 people in this county. That's 1,300 versus a week ago where it was 100 a day. So things are changing rapidly.
Yeah.
With that being said, I'm taking the Colts.
Yeah, but here's my final say on that. Things are changing rapidly, and they're going in the wrong direction.
Correct.
What is the logic behind loosening the restrictions? To me, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I think what's it going to take for the NFL? Is one of the players going to have to die?
Yeah, what actually scares me more than the loosening of the restrictions, honestly, is not even this version of the virus. It's the player to be named later version of the virus that we haven't seen, because this version is so unbelievably contagious that the next version could be equally as contagious and more deadly and beat any vaccines or boosters that we currently have.
Yeah, and I saw where Bruce Arians now has got COVID, and that's a guy that's had a lot of previous health histories. So, and we're seeing some of the guys get a little sicker. I think Robinson of the Bears, still isn't feeling right. It's been a couple of weeks for him. We saw obviously Tyreek Hill. We saw on the weekend, he was obviously not the same guy. He said he wore down badly during the course of the game. And it just, I don't know. I mean, I know they want to push forward, and all us fans out there and fantasy football players, we want to have our best lineups on the field and all that kind of stuff. But man, I just think we're entering a very dangerous territory here.
All right. So I think as we both agree on the Colts in this one, though I was struggled. I almost flip-flopped again, but I'm not going to, Brad. I've given you enough, and you gave back, so why would I take that away from you? All right, I think the last game we have of the week is the Minnesota Vikings heading to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are a 6.5 favorite at home. This is the Vikings have to win this game is really what it comes down to. Can Dalvin Cook run the ball? Can Adam Thielen play more than a half a football before he hurts his hamstring?
I think he's out. Didn't he have season-ending surgery today?
Okay, so he's out, so he can't even do that. Do you believe in Kirk Cousins after dark? Is the question, because we all know how Kirk Cousins is after dark. Brad, I as much as this pains me to do, I hope I am completely wrong about this. But I will be taking Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in this one. I'm making the change on the fly. I just Adam Thielen out, Aaron Rodgers at home against the Minnesota Vikings, an opportunity to put a stake in the ground in Minnesota. I will 100% be rooting for the Vikings. Don't get me wrong. This is just too much Aaron Rodgers. I'm afraid of what is to come on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I'm going to be rooting for the Vikings too, because I'm taking the Vikings in the 6.5 points. I'm hearing rumors that it could be 10 or 15 below wind chill factor. which I think does a lot of taking Aaron Rodgers out of the football game.
Yeah.
He has a tendency to overcome those things a little bit better than other guys do. But still 10, 15 below weather is 10, 15 below weather. And that means it's going to be more of a muck and grind sort of game. The Vikings defense at times has looked okay in recent weeks. They picked off, Matthew Stafford 3 times last week. My fear is that the Vikings aren't very good at stopping the run. And you know how I feel about Aaron Jones and Dillon. I think they're a pretty explosive 1-2 punch offensively. That's my biggest fear. But 6.5 I thought was a little bit much. The Vikings have played so many tight games this year. I have no reason to believe that they won't play another one. And so I'm going to take the 6.5 reluctantly and take your favorite team, the Minnesota Vikings, to cover that spread.
I'm on the verge of flipping the flip.
Are you going to flip-flop on the flip-flop?
I'm on the verge of flipping the flip.
Man.
Give me one more reason to go back over to the Minnesota Vikings side, and I'll do it.
No, I'm not going to give you any more. I'm going to let you think of your own damn reasons.
I just, knowing that Thielen's out now, the only thing I would say is that, if weather really does play a factor in this, I could see things changing around. You know what, Brad? I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to flip back to the Vikings. It will just make watching the game.
You can't root for the Packers, not with the purple blood rolling through your veins. There's no way in the world.
I can't do it. So I will flip back to the Vikings. Don't listen to me for the reasons why. Listen to Brad on this particular one. All right, there you go, North America. It is our top 10 games worth actually spending some money on, and some pretty solid COVID commentary, which we've stayed semi clear of throughout the year, but felt the need absolutely to.
It's permeated everywhere in every facet of our lives, Dave. It might as well permeate into our show a little bit.
Well, yeah, and you can you bring up such good points. It's like, how did we suddenly go from 10 days to 5 days? How did you suddenly go from a guy who isn't vaccinated to somehow getting back before guys who are vaccinated? And none of it makes a ton of sense. And what they're doing in the NBA now is they're saying, we're not even going to test you again once you've had it. We want to know.
They keep lightening all the restrictions, almost as if things have gotten better.
What you don't know is what you don't know. Is what it's come down to. All right. So real quick, we're heading into the end of the season. This playoff picture is really sort of all over the place. If you had to pick 2 teams to be in the Super Bowl this year, at this point, who would they be?
Bills. I'm taking the Bills, Dave. Don't kid yourself. You're gonna eat that pick you made this week. And in the NFC, I think it's very, very wide open. And I know that sounds vague beyond belief, obviously. But I think I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I really do. If I had to pick a team right now, I would say it's the Cowboys, and the Bills are playing the best football of any team in each conference.
I mean, wouldn't it be great to have a Cowboys-Bills Super Bowl rematch and have it come down to a field goal? I'm just saying.
Leon Lett. Who could forget the Leon Lett play where he was running down the sidelines and got the ball swatted away? What was it about the half-yard line?
Half-yard line, yeah.
Who was the little guy that used to play for the Bills? That I think he's been left. Yeah, I think he's been left off or just missed the cut for the Hall of Fame, 8 or 10 years in a row.
Yeah. Anyways, if I had to pick 2 teams, I'll agree with you on the Cowboys, and I'm rolling the dice with Andy Reid and this. I like what they're doing in Kansas City, Brad. I like what they're doing in Kansas City more than I like what Buffalo has been doing the last month and a half. I know they won a couple games now, but show me more, Josh Allen.
Are you off the Bill Belichick bandwagon, Dave?
Oh yeah. We need to be off of that. we need to be entirely off of that because we have seen, what defenses are able to do to their offense now. And do I believe they can win a playoff game? Yes. Do I think they can go on a playoff run? Not with this starting quarterback. I don't think they've found the heir apparent yet to Tom Brady.
I find it interesting neither one of us took the Packers. Because they do have the best record in the NFC. They have, in my opinion, one of the great quarterbacks in the history of the game. They have a great running game.
We should be taking the Packers in that game.
Dave, I'm still just not convinced this team has a great defense. I'm really not. And, fortunately, they have a guy that can overcome a lot of obstacles just because he outsmarts the other team. And that makes them dangerous every single week that they take the field. But I still think the NFC is wide open. Dallas appears to be playing the best football. I'm not real thrilled about their offense right now, but maybe Dak Prescott finds something. Dak Prescott's going to have to play better if the Cowboys are going to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. Want to take a moment here, Brad, and wish everybody a happy and healthy new year. I told one of my kids yesterday, I said, hey, good news. The Vikings aren't going to lose any more games this year. And one of them said, so they're out of the playoffs. And then I had to play the year game. Said their next game is on January 2nd. That being said, I think we definitely any parting words for the upcoming New Year's, Brad, you want to throw out there?
No, just stay safe, stay off the roads if you can on New Year's Eve. If you go somewhere, take an Uber home. Don't be stupid. Especially if you're out west here. I don't know about up in your area, Dave, but out west, traffic's been terrible. My daughter drove back home today. She got halfway up the mountain to go over the Grapevine and the road closed because of snow. So she had to turn around, head west and take the 101 north and ended up being about a 10.5-hour trip just to get home. So, the weather's not good. Drinking and driving never works out very well. So That's my message.
Yeah, be careful out there. We had a holiday party. It was going to have like 30 people in it. Got canceled. All business trips next in January have been canceled at this point. So, keep a mask on, stay healthy while you're out there if you can. And I keep saying this to my kids as I hand them an N95 mask. Wear a really protective mask while you're out there. It does make a difference. All right. That is it from the Gods of Odds for week number 17 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoisev over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeBopp in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
God here, and thanks for tuning in to the Gods of Odds. For more semi-witty sports commentary, please make sure you check out mighty.rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.